Yo, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports podcast. I'm like from Wisconsin or something. Fresh perspective right after the Braves won. I'm recording this Tuesday night, right after the World Series. Couldn't be happier for a non-Dodger team to win the World Series as the Atlanta Braves beat the Houston Astros in 6 games. And on this 2 cents, it's going to be all about the Braves and all about the fact that I am happy to see the Astros not win, and I'll tell you why in a second. But glad to have you in. Thanks for joining me today. Got my interview with another sports podcaster. His name is Juan from the Max and Juan cast. We do some collaborations together. He's a knowledgeable sports guy, so I think you'll love that episode. We talk a lot of NFL and NBA stuff, so a lot of good stuff coming up on the episode. But as far as my thoughts, this is fresh perspective right after the Braves win the World Series. First time in 26 years. So really cool to see that. And they were loaded in the 90s, those of you old enough to remember. And John Smoltz, one of the color commentators of this series, was on those mid-90s teams that only won 1 World Series, and they probably should have won at least 2, maybe 3 during that era. But the Freddie Freeman-led Atlanta Braves now come through. I mean, what a year for the Atlanta Braves. I'll just dive into them for a second. I like to remind people now that I found out about this stat. On August 2nd, the Atlanta Braves were 52-55, okay? Under 500 in August after the trade deadline. You only have a couple months to make that up to make the playoffs. They end up winning 88 games and win the division. That was the first good thing. They played in a very weak and underachieving National League East, so we get that. The Mets underachieved. Obviously, the Marlins are the Marlins, but you got the Phillies who underachieve as usual as of late. It's, I can't say much about the Phillies at this point. They got all the talent in the world, and they just can't get over the hump. So the fact that they made all these moves at the deadline as well, the Atlanta Braves did. They picked up Duvall, who hit a grand slam in Game 5. That guy's been a huge contributor. They pick up the out-of-nowhere NLCS MVP against the Dodgers, Eddie Rosario, who was literally, you could not get that dude out in that series. Jorge Soler hit the big home run tonight in Game 6. And Jock Peterson had 3 home runs, former Dodger, former Cub, 3 homers in the postseason himself. Those 4 guys adding to that core of what the Braves already have took them over the hump. And I want to mention, they lost their best player, if you remember, earlier this year, Ronald Acuna Jr. He's an MVP-type caliber player. And they lost him to a torn ACL earlier this year on a freak play in the outfield. So they already lost their best player. And now, like I mentioned, under 500 in early August. And they made this crazy run all the way through the playoffs, beating the Dodgers to make up for what happened last year in the world, in the NLCS, when they were up 3-1, gave it away, and the Dodgers came back and eventually won the World Series. But the Atlanta Braves made up for it all. Their pitching was dominant. Their bullpen was unbelievable. Last year, about a year ago, I had Tyler Matzik on after they played their season, and he was a vital part, pitched in Game 6 tonight, and did really well. Their bullpen was lights out. Their starting pitching was great. Charlie Morton breaks his ankle in Game 1. They, against literally all odds, this team ended up winning the World Series. So very happy for the Atlanta Braves and all the Braves fans out there. Like I said, first one since '95. So they deserved it. They were the best team this year. Eventually they became the best team. Didn't look that way in the beginning, but when it shows you there's a little momentum and you get hot, man, you can just beat everybody, and they had all the pieces to do so. I do want to mention why it was so important, in my opinion, that the Astros didn't win the World Series. Now, some of you may say it's time to get over it. Whatever, it's 4 years ago. They cheated. Not that big of a deal. Everyone does it. Okay. Even if everybody does it, they're the worst of the bunch. And I'm not sure everybody does it, but let's just say, if that's your argument, they were clearly the worst of the bunch, banging trash cans, all that stuff, stole a World Series from the Dodgers in 2017. And for them to lose at home on Tuesday night was freaking awesome. Just seeing their fans there have to go through that and the karma of that. And if you remember in 2019, the Washington Nationals with Max Scherzer and Juan Soto and Strasburg, that whole crew in 2019, everybody in that series with the Astros won road games. So the Nationals had to go into Houston in a Game 7 and win a road game to win the World Series. They did it there as well. 2 years later, the Braves win a Game 6 in Houston. I love it. Shove it in their fans' face. Shove it in those players' face. Because you know what? The core 4, that infield in Houston with Bregman at third, Correa at short, Altuve at second, and Gurriel at first. Those 4 guys were there during that cheating scandal in 2017, and they all benefited from it. So I did not want Major League Baseball and fans of baseball to have to reward and support a cheater like that, a cheating group like that. Now, not everybody on their team now is part of that run, but the core four, I hate to use the word hateable. They're whatever. They did what they did on the baseball field. It's not, in the grand scheme of life, it's not that big of a deal. But I would hate to reward those guys with another World Series because they were never penalized. The only thing that happened to that World Series team after 2017 was AJ Hinch got fired, and now he's a manager again with the Tigers back in baseball, and the GM got fired. That's it. They got to keep their ring. They got to keep their playoff bonuses because every round you go in the MLB playoffs, you get a higher playoff bonus, and it's a good chunk of change. Slap on the wrist. Then COVID happened, so they skated by for over a year with the fan backlash, the public backlash. They went through enough right after it happened, but they did not have to face anywhere near what they would have gotten the season after in 2018, the season after in 2020, after it all came out in 2019. Just insane. So I'm happy the Astros lost. I don't wish any ill will on any of those guys, but I'm happy that they were not rewarded with a World Series win because it would not sit well with me or most fans to have to say, damn, the Astros are World Series champions again. So extremely happy for the Braves. They earned it. And it was pretty cool to see that. If the Dodgers aren't going to win, I'm happy for the Braves. They totally earned it. So happy for them. One weird, interesting trivia note and kind of a funny stat from the World Series that had nothing to do with anybody playing really, except for one guy. But so I mentioned John Smoltz, who was the color commentator with Joe Buck on the broadcast on Fox. And Smoltz was one of the key, he was Glavine, Smoltz, and Maddox, that big trio for the Braves pitching staff in the mid-90s. 39 years in a row, and this year counts too, John Smoltz has had a teammate that was in every World Series for the past 39 years. So Charlie Morton, originally drafted by the Braves, then left and came back eventually. Charlie Morton was a teammate of John Smoltz toward the end of Smoltz's career. So he was the connection to this year's World Series. But really weird trivia stat there. 39 years in a row, almost 4 decades of John Smoltz being a teammate of somebody that made it to the World Series. Just figured I'd give you that. Not that you care, but you never know. If you need it for a trivia night, you might use that stat. So John Smoltz, 39 years in a row, has had a teammate in the World Series. Pretty cool. Had lots of stuff happen in the NFL this weekend. This was kind of let down weekend, wasn't it? You had a bunch of backup quarterbacks win. You had teams like the Bengals who come off a huge win against Baltimore, lose to the Jets, and Mike White, who, threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, went off against the Bengals. A lot of pretenders like Atlanta, who all of a sudden was starting to, they win a couple games, then you lose to a sliding Carolina team who had lost 4 straight. Just a lot of weird things happen in the NFL. Not a ton of great games, honestly. It's been pretty weak. I'm hoping for some better matchups this weekend. You got Packers-Chiefs. That should be exciting. And some other matchups that should be good. But the other big game I was looking forward to was Tennessee Titans at the Rams, Sunday Night Football. Derrick Henry's obviously out now. They signed Adrian Peterson. Obviously not the same. He's 36 years old. But I was really looking forward to Titans-Rams. I think there'll be a fun game Sunday night, either way, without Derrick Henry. But looking forward to that. And a big note in baseball, I guess, Bob Melvin used to coach the A's. Now he's coming in to coach San Diego Padres after Jace Tingler was let go. And there's this resurgence of old coaches. If you notice in the World Series this year, you had Brian Snitker, who's 66 years old, second oldest to win a World Series with the Braves. And Dusty Baker brought that Astros team to the World Series. You had Tony La Russa make a resurgence. And now you got Bob Melvin, been around the game for a long time. And he's had success with the Moneyball budget of the Oakland A's. Now, with a bigger payroll and more talent, we'll see if Bob Melvin can bring the Padres to where we all think they should be, which is a perennial playoff contender. So we'll see what happens with the Padres there. Hit me up anytime at Too Tall Sports Podcast on Instagram, at Too Tall Sports on Twitter. Send me an email if you want, Too Tall Sports Podcast at gmail.com. I'm still doing my weekly shows on YouTube Live and Colorcast. That's the app, Colorcast. That's the audio app. And I do my Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. You can check me out there. Live shows, a lot of fun, more interactive, more live sports takes and all that stuff. So if you want to join YouTube Live, 7:30 Pacific time on Tuesday nights and Colorcast as well. With that, I will get to our interview with Juan from the Max and Juan cast. Please enjoy and go Braves for today. Happy that the Astros, the Cheatstros or the Trastros, however you want to call it, did not win. So we saved another year of disappointment. Anyways, have a great day and enjoy the interview with Juan from the Max and Juan cast.